Good evening, everyone. As Paula said, Kurt Czarnowski, currently the principal in Czarnowski Consulting. Those one or two of you in the room not familiar with Czarnowski Consulting, proud to say we're an international consulting firm whose world headquarters happen to be conveniently located in the basement of my house in Norfolk, Massachusetts. Don't worry, at Czarnowski Consulting, we always say we provide expert answers to your Social Security questions. And why can I say that simple? As Paula referenced, I worked for the Social Security Administration for 34 years. Last 20 years of my career, I was a communications director here in New England, which meant I spent my time out talking to folks about the program. And I've continued to do that in my retirement, such as it is, frankly, because I enjoy it. But I also think there's a real need for the information. Because believe it or not, the Social Security program is now a little over 81 years old. Each and every month, the Social Security Administration pays about $73 billion in benefits to just over 60 million people. And on top of that, there's another 165 million folks, like most of you in this room, are now out there working and paying into the program. And so what I saw during my time at the agency, and now that I'm on my own, is despite the age of the program, despite the size of the program, despite the economic impact that Social Security has in this country today, unfortunately, the myths and misunderstandings that are out there about what it is, as well as what it isn't, are frankly staggering. Nobody knows nothing about the program, as best I can tell, so I was really excited to accept the invitation to come back tonight and spend the next 7 or 8 hours with you. What? We're serving breakfast? Spend a little time talking about some of the things I think it's important for you to know about what the program is, perhaps equally importantly what it isn't. And why is it so important to have that information these days? Simple 2 words. Baby boomers, 75 million of us, baby boomers storming towards retirement, just now starting to wake up to the fact retirement world staring us in the face is different than the retirement world that faced our parents and our grandparents. We're just starting to recognize that the Social Security program has a guaranteed stream of lifetime income that we can outlive, maybe a bigger part of our retirement income than we had ever anticipated. We're also recognizing that we don't know as much about the program as we should. We're scrambling to catch up. So in our time together tonight, I want to give you some good, solid information. Again, help you understand what the program is, recognize what it isn't, dispel some of those myths, misunderstandings, set you down the road for that comfortable, secure retirement we all hope to enjoy. Hey, most important slide in the deck happens to be this one. You're going to hear me reference it over and over again. Key message from me, you need to understand when the program was created over 81 years ago, it was put in place to provide you with a base or foundation of income protection that could definitely count on being there for you. But it's a base of income protection that you must take steps to supplement, because it was never intended to be your only source of income in retirement. But unfortunately these days, about 26% of retiring couple households, the Social Security money that comes into those folks each month is virtually the only income they have. Terrible situations. How do you avoid that happening to you? Well, by planning retirement, obviously. We commend it, taking time out of busy schedules, spend a little time here tonight planning for retirement, learning about the Social Security program. Now, for the longest time, the Social Security Administration tried to play a very active role in helping you plan for your retirement. Excuse me, because you may or may not recall, on an annual basis, you used to receive a paper document in the mail from Social Security, a Social Security statement. It will come out to you 3 months before your birthday on an annual basis, giving you important retirement planning information. Benefit estimates at 3 ages, 62, your full retirement age of 70. Would also provide a nice year-by-year breakout of what Social Security had recorded as your work and earnings under the program. And it's important to take a look at that information, verify that the earnings information was accurate, because you'll see in a minute, what you eventually collect is directly related to what your work and earnings have been. So if a mistake had occurred in crediting you with some of your earnings, if you didn't correct it, it would have a direct impact on what you eventually collected. You may have noticed, hey, I haven't got one of those paper documents every year lately. What's the deal? Well, Social Security has changed the way they distribute Social Security statements. So I'll bring you up to date on what the latest information is, because they no longer mail a paper statement to everyone on an annual basis. Instead, what they've done is put in place a system whereby if you go to socialsecurity.gov/myaccount, take about 10 or 15 minutes or so to set up your own individual Social Security account. One of the byproducts of having that account in place is that you'll be able to download a Social Security statement for yourself anytime you want. But I'd encourage you to do that. Take that 10 or 15 minutes or so, because you're going to come in, you're going to meet with Nick, going to meet with Paul, and do some retirement planning. Having that current statement at hand will be a good tool to to enhance that discussion. But Social Security has also announced that they've decided to resume mailing paper documents, but on a very limited basis. And here's what Social Security now says. If you are 60 years of age or older and haven't set up a Social Security account for yourself yet, then they are going to mail you a paper document on that same old schedule on an annual basis about 3 months before your birthday. But under the age of 60, you're not going to get a paper document mailed to you. The only way you can get a statement is by setting up your account and downloading that. So I'd encourage you to do that. An important planning tool. But here's the thing about the statement. As I mentioned, gives you benefit estimates only at 3 ages. 62, your full retirement age of 70. And in preparing the estimate, because Social Security has no idea what your future work plans are, they base the calculation on an assumption that you're going to keep working, making the same amount of money you made for the past couple of years. Well, you know as well as I do, in planning for retirement, may be interested in collecting benefits at some age other than just those 3 I mentioned. May also be interested in figuring out what would happen to your Social Security benefit if, for example, you quit work tomorrow. Or perhaps went part-time in a couple of years, or maybe took a second job in 3 years. So another retirement planning tool you should avail yourself of is Social Security's online retirement estimator. The beauty of the estimator is you work with your own Social Security earnings record without the need to go back and key in all of your prior year earnings like you have to do with certain other commercial software products. But now with the online estimator, you can develop what-if scenarios to your heart's content. You want to find out how much you get from Social Security if you started collecting, at age 64 in 2 months, or age 66 in 8 months, or whatever age you're interested in. And or you want to find out what would happen to your Social Security payment if indeed you quit work tomorrow and never went back, or went part-time in a couple of years, or took a second job. Designed to help you answer those what-if questions. And I think in your folders you get a nice little trifold brochure about how to use that online estimator. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of the 2 retirement planning tools that Social Security makes available to you, the online Social Security statement, the online retirement estimator. Take advantage of those, both designed to help you recognize programs going to provide you that base, that foundation of financial protection, but hopefully you'll recognize it's not supposed to be your only source of income in retirement. Work with these 2 fine folks to find ways you can supplement your Social Security and have that comfortable retirement we all hope to enjoy. So plan for retirement. Now, as I go around the country and talk to folks about the program, I think the most frequently asked question these days has to be, well, when should I take my money? So understand this, you've got a lot of choices, you've got a lot of options. What I'm going to try to do tonight is help you understand those choices and options. The way I characterize it, I want to help you understand what you can do under the system. But ultimately deciding what you should do is your choice, your decision. You're the ones who've worked and paid into it. I can't tell you what you should do. But my view is, less than until you fully understand what you can do, you're in no position to decide what you should do. So let's make sure you understand your choices and options, then you can make that decision what you should do. As we go through the exercise, I always like to say, make sure you know what Social Security calls your full retirement age. When the program started back in 1935, Congress set Social Security full retirement age as the month you reached age 65. They set that for everyone without exception. It continued that way until 1983, when Congress amended the law, decided to increase Social Security full retirement age for anyone born 1938 or later. The increase has gradually been phased in. We're now at the point, though, for a big chunk of us baby boomers, and who was born between 1943 and 1954, our Social Security full retirement age is the month we reach age 66. But an important point is it continues to increase beyond age 66, depending on your year of birth. In fact, it tops out. Anyone born 1960 or later has a Social Security full retirement age as the month you turn age 67. Now, collecting at full retirement age isn't your only choice, isn't your only option, but make sure you know what your full retirement age is based on your year of birth, because you'll see a lot of features of the program do flow from at least having reached your full retirement age. So make sure you know what that is. But in terms of collecting payments, you have to start taking your money the month you reach your full retirement age. That means one thing and one thing only. It means you'll collect 100% of the amount your work and earnings have entitled you to draw. And we'll talk in a second how that all gets calculated. But that's what full retirement age is, 100% of what your benefit amount is. But Among the many options you have are to start taking your money before you've reached your full retirement age, if that makes sense for you. And you can start to collect as early as age 62 if you choose to do so. Or at any point in between, by the way. You don't have to start right on your birthday. You don't have to start on the first of the calendar year. But understand this. Social Security, as the name implies, is a social insurance program. And Congress has built certain social goals into it. And one is the hope that everyone ends up with roughly the same amount of lifetime benefits regardless when you start to collect them. And so, if you opt to start taking your money before you've hit your full retirement age, because now in theory then you'll be collecting for a longer period of time because you started earlier, your monthly payment amount is going to be reduced. Start to take your money before you hit full retirement age, your benefit amount is reduced by roughly 0.5% for each month that you opt to collect. 0.5% per month reduction. And oh yeah, it's a permanent reduction. None of those myths and misunderstandings that are out there. Too many folks mistakenly believe, yeah, I know I'll start early, I'll get less. But as soon as I hit my full retirement age, my payment will be zooming back up. No, no, no. Permanent reduction, the theory being you're starting sooner, therefore collecting probably for a longer period of time, so you're given less on an individual monthly basis. Again, how much less? Roughly 0.5% per month, 6% per year, but you don't have to start right on your birthday, don't have to start at the first of the calendar year, but for each month prior to full retirement age that you opt to collect, your benefit is permanently reduced by roughly 0.5%. As I said, you start right at full retirement age, you get 100% what your working earnings entitle you to, but among the options you have are to wait beyond full retirement age before starting to collect if that makes sense for you. And with that social insurance idea in place, if you opt to wait, now then in theory you'll be collecting for a shorter period of time because you started later. So by all rights, if you wait, your monthly payment amount ought to be increased. Well, it is. Folks, these are called delayed retirement credits. And for each month past your full retirement age that you opt not to collect, your payment is now permanently going to be increased by 0.2% per month, or 8% per year. But here's the key thing. These delayed retirement credits only accrue until age 70. But for each month from your full retirement age up until 70, you have to defer your payments permanently increased by 0.2% per month. No additional increase by waiting past age 70. Now here's the important thing to point out. You never have to take your Social Security benefits. Not like there's a required minimum distribution or anything like that. In fact, more of you in this room would cowboy up and not take your money. The system might not be faced with some of the financial difficulties. You're not buying that for a second. Let me give you an example to illustrate what I'm talking about. Say we get somebody with a full retirement age of 66, and at her full retirement age of 66, let's say she gets $1,000 a month. What are her options? What are her choices? Now we'll oversimplify the example. We won't factor in cost of living increases. COLAs complicate all calculations, but they lift all boats equally. But if she wants to start collecting right at age 62, the earliest point, the way the reduction factor works out, she receives 75% of the amount she'd receive if she waited till full retirement age. In other words, she starts at age 62, doesn't get $1,000 a month, she gets $750 per month, and continuing. Waits a little bit, say starts at age 63, payment's going to be higher. At age 63, she'd get $800 a month and continuing. Waits all the way till her full retirement age of 66, that's when she gets the full $1,000 a month that her working earnings entitled her to draw. So she wants to wait a little bit for one reason or another, wants to wait 1 year. Start at age 67. Well, that 1 year's worth of deferral, her payment's going to be 8% higher at that point, meaning her ongoing benefit rate, $1,080 per month and continuing. She waits all the way until age 70. That's when she'll earn the maximum of 4 years of delayed retirement credits, meaning her benefit starting at age 70 is going to be 32% higher than her full retirement age amount, because it's 8% increase for each of those 4 years, and it's simple interest, not compounded. But it means she starts at age 70, doesn't get $1,000 a month, no, she gets $1,320 per month and continuing. Well, see, she wants to start at age 72. Still gonna be that $1,320, right? Because there are no additional delayed retirement credits past age 70. Bottom line, your choice, your decision. What are the factors you gotta be thinking about? You know, as well as I do, obviously your health for one, huh? Longevity. For second factor, I always like to ask, you come from a family of long livers? Or do you come from a family of short pancreases. Boom. Line out of the movie Goodbye Columbus 40-something years ago. I can't get credit for it. You need the money in retirement. You're going to keep working. All those factors come into play. But the whole idea always used to be, shouldn't really matter, because based on average life expectancy, you'd end up with roughly the same amount of money no matter when you started. But you know what? Life expectancy is increasing. Social Security numbers say 65-year-old man today going to live on average to age 84. 65-year-old woman on average to age 86. But even more telling to me, Social Security numbers say today's 65-year-olds, 1 in 3 going to live to age 90. 1 in 7 age 95. We baby boomers need to focus on the fact retirement for us could be a period of 20, 25, or maybe even 30 years in length. And so that's why my personal view tends to be, because for most of us boomers, as we head into retirement, we don't have that traditional defined benefit pension. If we have pensions at all, far more likely to be the defined contribution type, 401k, 403b, 457. Where we're heading into retirement, not with a guaranteed stream of lifetime income that we can't outlive. No, we're heading into retirement with a pile of money. And we're discovering the burden has been shifted on us. Figure out how to make that money last through that extended period of time in retirement. So my view tends to be, again, personally, not for just me, because most of us boomers, later in retirement, that pile of money will have diminished somewhat. Later in retirement, our healthcare costs will likely be higher. So perhaps it makes sense to defer collecting your Social Security benefits, because one way you can help have additional income later in retirement when you may need it more is by, again, delaying the start of your Social Security benefits. And again, not for me to say it's your choice, your decision. I just want to make sure you understand the basic principle, which is you start sooner, you get a lower monthly payment. You wait longer before you start to collect your benefits higher. But many years ago when Congress set that reduction rate, the increase rate, based on average life expectancy at the time, it was all supposed to come out about even. But now, as life expectancy is increasing, I tend to think good things come to those who wait. But again, not for me to say your choice, your decision. I just want to make sure you understand the basic concept. Then whatever you want to do is fine with me. So that's the when you can collect. Second big area people have questions about is, well, how do they figure out how much I'm getting anyway? So understand this, as I said a while ago, there is a relationship between your work and your earnings and what you eventually collect each month from Social Security, but we'll see in a second it's not a perfect correlation. But in calculating anybody's benefit, Social Security uses a formula that Congress has written right into the law. Formula has a number of different steps in it. First step, Social Security does go back, look at all of your prior year earnings, and bring them up to date and adjust them for inflation, bring them up to what they are in today's dollars. But then once they've done that, they calculate your benefit by averaging your earnings over your highest, wait for it, 35 years of work. None of those myths or misunderstandings. I don't know how many folks I've talked to over the years mistakenly think your Social Security benefit is based on your high 3 or your last 5, like some other pension systems are out there. Social Security benefits are based on a lifetime of earnings. These days defined as your highest 35 years of work under the system. So what happens if you don't have 35 years when you've actually worked and paid into the program? Taking time out of the workforce to raise kids, care for aging parents, or perhaps work for a while on a job where you weren't paying into the Social Security program. Unfortunately, no provision for that. Your benefit is still going to be an average of your highest 35 years of work under the system. So if you don't happen to have 35 years of something, 0. Get plugged in for those additional years, lowers your average monthly wage, it lowers your monthly benefit. But here's the takeaway again. Another reminder about Social Security being that social insurance program. And putting that formula in place in the law, Congress has recognized that people in lower paying jobs, less likely to have a pension of any kind, less likely to be able to save for retirement during their working years because they need their money for food, clothing, and shelter. So the basic formula does try and help people who've been in lower paying jobs by providing them a monthly benefit which is intended to replace a higher percentage of their pre-retirement income, somewhere in the neighborhood of 55%. For somebody who's been a higher earner throughout his or her working years, yeah, they get more each month than the low earner does. But if you look what that payment represents, it's actually designed to replace a smaller percentage of their pre-retirement income, somewhere in the neighborhood of 34%. And for the average worker these days, a Social Security payment only intended to replace around 41% of your pre-retirement income. In no case, high earner, low earner, average earner, doesn't replace 100% of what you're making at the time you retire. Which leads us back to that first slide I showed you. Vitally important, recognize the program designed to provide you that base, that foundation of income, but it was never intended to be your only source of income in retirement. And the sooner you recognize that, find ways to supplement your Social Security, the more likely you are to have that comfortable retirement. Two numbers for you to chew on this evening. 2017, the average Social Security retirement benefit being paid, $1,360 a month. $1,360 average Social Security retirement benefit. But I often get asked, well, is there a maximum payment that Social Security makes? Well, 2017, for someone who is at full retirement age of 66 this year, and who for each of the past 35 years has had earnings at or above whatever the taxable maximum has been for each of those years. So that's an important point. Each year, there's a maximum level of earnings upon which Social Security tax is imposed. 2017, for example, you could make $500,000, but you're only going to pay Social Security tax this year in the first $127,200 that you make. So when it comes time to average your earnings, Social Security doesn't average in the $500,000. No, they average in only the earnings that have been subject to Social Security tax. So, for somebody full retirement age of 66 this year, each of the past 35 years has had earnings at or above whatever the maximum has been for each of those 35 years, he or she receives $2,687 a month. $2,687 maximum full retirement age, $1,360 average benefit. Nothing to sneeze at, but it's that good solid base, that good solid foundation. You gotta find ways to supplement. Incidentally, if I'd been given the full 8 hours I was originally promised when Paul reached out to me, we'd be going through this stuff in excruciatingly painful.
I saved you all, okay? I saved you all.
Come on, I want to let you know, if you're really interested in calculations and computations, there's a great deal of information on the Social Security Administration website at www.socialsecurity.gov/ and then in all capital letters OACT, which is an abbreviation for the Social Security Administration's Office of the Actuary. Everybody knows what an actuary is, right? Mm-hmm. Actuary is somebody who doesn't have enough personality to be an accountant. Ho! All right, so we talked about the when you can collect, we talked about how benefits are figured. I want to bring you up to date on working in retirement, because we get a lot of questions about that as well. It's important to understand, if you're looking to collect Social Security payments while you are under your full retirement age and looking to continue working, you need to understand that you're limited in how much you can earn before it begins to impact your ability to collect. 2017, if you're under your full retirement age, looking to collect and hoping to work, you're allowed to make up to $16,920 without any loss of benefits whatsoever. Now, you make above $16,920, doesn't mean you can't collect at all necessarily, but it means Social Security then starts to hold back $1 in benefit payments for each $2 that you're over that threshold. So what counts towards that $16,920? Two things only: wages or net income from self-employment. In other words, earned income only. That whole wide world of unearned income you might be receiving, a VA benefit, a General Motors pension, 401k distributions, bank interest, dividends, lottery earnings, winnings. None of that counts towards that $16,920 earned income only. But the good news is, from the month you reach your full retirement age, this earnings limitation goes away. And from the month you reach full retirement age on, you can work and earn as much as you'd like and collect full Social Security benefits at the same time. Now, I often get asked the question, I'm retired, and I'm thinking about going back to work. I don't have to pay Social Security tax on my earnings, do I? If you're in a job covered by Social Security, you will absolutely pay Social Security tax no matter how old you are. Good news for the folks at Social Security, because they can certainly use the money. But there's potentially good news for you. Remember I mentioned, your benefit is always calculated by averaging your highest 35 years of work under the system. Well, it's your high 35 regardless of when they occur. So even if you consider yourself retired, you go back to work, you pay into the system, and if your earnings are higher than the lowest of the 35 years that Social Security had been using to calculate your benefit, well, the great news for you is, end of the year, you file your tax return, Social Security does a match, they will drop out that low year, plug in that new year, result in a benefit increase for you going forward. And this ability to increase your payment through additional work and earnings, it continues forever. We talked about delayed retirement credit stopping at age 70, that bump because you haven't collected. Yeah, no additional bump by not collecting past age 70. But no matter how old you are, as long as you're working, paying into the system, and as long as the earnings are higher than the lowest of your 35 years, your payment's going to go up no matter how old you are. The other bit of good news about working is, frankly, after full retirement age, work never hurts. So you've been a high-priced executive. But in retirement, take a job down the road at the local Dartmouth Country Club. You drive the beer cart around, make a couple $1,000 at the end of the year. That couple $1,000 is probably going to be lower than the lowest of your 35 years of earnings. So what happens to your benefit going forward? Nothing. It's always based on your highest 35 years of work. Not necessarily your first 35, not necessarily your last 35, not necessarily 35 consecutive years, your highest 35 regardless of the year. So a while ago I said I think good things come to those who wait. I think good things can come to those who work as well. It's full retirement age on, work never hurts. All right, this is what I want to do next. We'll spend a little time bringing up to date on some changes that have occurred in the Social Security claiming strategies that couples have been able to utilize, changes as a result of the bipartisan budget bill of 2015. Strategies are all related to ways couples could coordinate the collection of benefits. So, before we can talk about the changes to the strategies, I want to make sure you have a full understanding of how the Social Security spousal program, divorce spousal, and survivor program works. Then we'll talk about changes to the strategies. Spousal benefits. Program's been around for about 60 or 70 years now, put in place by Congress, frankly, to support the model of the American family, the 1950s and the 1960s. These two folks know, You hear me talk about spousal benefits? I illustrate it by referring to what, in my estimation, was the prototypical American family of the 50s and 60s, which was the Cleaver family from the TV show Leave It to Beaver. Because in the Cleaver household, you had Ward and June. Hang on a second. Leave It to Beaver. It's on Nick at Night or TV Land. In the Cleaver household, Ward and June. Ward was the only one who worked. He was a breadwinner, right? Came downstairs each morning. He was impeccably dressed. He left the home briefcase in hand. We don't really know where he went or what he did, but he worked. And June Cleaver, prototypical American housewife of the 50s and 60s, well, frankly, she came downstairs each morning equally impeccably dressed. She had pearls and high heels on in the morning, for God's sakes. But June Cleaver never left the house. Her job, best we can tell, had brownies and milk available for Wally and me, right? Social Security spousal program supports the Cleaver model in the following way. Ward Cleaver breadwinner. At his full retirement age, or he'll get a benefit based on whatever that mysterious work was. So let's say at his full retirement age, he gets $1,000 a month. June Cleaver, as his spouse, at her full retirement age, she's going to be eligible to collect a monthly amount equal to 50% of Ward's full retirement age amount. In our example, $500 a month. That'll be paid to her in addition to the $1,000 that's paid to Ward. And it'll be paid to her even though she may not have worked a day outside the home in her life. Now, for June to collect as a spouse, a few conditions have to be met. First, Ward needs to be collecting. All right, June can't collect that spousal payment unless and until Ward is actually collecting. Two, for June to be able to collect as a spouse, she has to be at least 62. Earliest age a spouse can collect, no different than on the retirement program. Now, if she is at her full retirement age, that's when she gets the full 50% of his full retirement age amount. If she's younger than that, when she starts, she gets less. Her payment is reduced, just as someone's own retirement benefit is reduced if you start to collect it early. And it works out, she starts right at age 62, she gets 35% of his full retirement age amount. That's the third key point. June's spousal benefit, it's based on 50% of Ward's full retirement age amount, not necessarily 50% of what he's actually collecting. What do I mean by that? Simple. Ward full retirement age amount $1,000, but he's opted to wait till age 70, so he's actually collecting $1,320 a month because he's accrued those delayed retirement credits. June's spousal payment still only gonna be $500 a month, 50% of the full retirement age amount. So in this instance, her benefit is less than half of what he's collecting. But by the same token, say Ward, full retirement age amount $1,000, but he starts at age 62, so he's only getting $750. If June waits till full retirement age, she's still gonna get $500 a month. 50% of the full retirement age amount. So in the second instance, she gets more than half. That's the 50s and 60s, when June was a stay-at-home mom. What about the 70s, 80s, and beyond? Because now in all likelihood, June Cleaver will have worked outside the home, will have paid into the Social Security program, will have earned a benefit on her own. How does that all work together? Well, let's say Ward still got his $1,000, but let's say June's earned a benefit on her own of $800 a month. I always like to envision June Cleaver selling beer at Fenway Park. If you get the pearls on, check an ID and things like that. So let's say she's gonna get a benefit on her own of $800 a month. They had the Social Security together. Ward gets his $1,000, June gets her $800. Social Security is about to say goodbye and good luck, and June goes, hey, 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 can't fool me. Where's that $500 spousal payment I've heard so much about? At that point, Social Security goes, sorry, June. One of the rules, as Ward's spouse, you can collect that 50% of his full retirement age amount, or your own, one or the other, whichever one is higher if you want, but you don't get both benefit amounts at once. Now, say she hadn't worked that much though, so her own benefit was only $250. Well, Ward's collecting, she'll then be given an additional $250 to move her from the $250 on her own up to that $500. But spousal benefits, 50%. The higher earner's full retirement age amount, or the individual's own, one or the other, not both at once. By the way, the program's completely gender neutral. What do I mean by that? Simple. Say the Cleavers had been ahead of their day back in the 50s, and Ward was a stay-at-home dad, and June was the primary breadwinner. Everything I talked about would be equally true. That he could collect 50% of her full retirement age amount, or his own. One or the other, not both at once. Actually, a tragedy has befallen the Cleaver family. After many happy years of marriage, Ward has run off with his 24-year-old secretary. June has divorced him. The question is, can June Cleaver collect as a divorced spouse based on Ward's work and earnings? The answer is perhaps, if a few conditions have been met. What are those conditions? First and foremost, the marriage needs to have lasted at least 10 years prior to the divorce. Check. Second, for June to be able to collect, she cannot be married. All right, Ward, the cad, he could have married that young hussy without impacting her ability to collect on him. But for her to be able to collect as a divorced spouse, she cannot be married. Third, she has to be at least age 62. Earliest age a divorced spouse can collect, no different than if the marriage were still intact. But there is one advantage that accrues in cases of divorce that doesn't apply if the marriage is intact. I mentioned, for June to collect, while still married, Ward has to be collecting. But in cases of divorce, the law says, hey, as long as they're both over the age of 62, and the divorce was finalized at least 2 years ago, she can collect on him even if he hasn't started to draw benefits. All right? Both have to be 62 or older, divorce finalized at least 2 years ago. She can collect on him even if he has not yet started collecting. So, those conditions being met, what's she entitled to collect? Simple. It's if the marriage was still intact. She'd be eligible to receive 50% of his full retirement age amount, or her own, one or the other, whichever one is higher, but not both at once. Spousal benefits, divorce spousal benefits. Actually, I was lying, they didn't get divorced. Let's talk about survivor benefits. Here's some real good news for June. That's if Ward dies. It's not good news for Ward by any stretch of the imagination, when I say that. But now we're talking about widows and widowers. You hear the basic rate for June now? Not 50% of his full retirement age amount, no. It's 100% of what he was collecting at the time he passed away. Oh yeah, or her own, one or the other, but not both at once. But how's it all work? Simple. Ward, full retirement age amount $1,000. He's collecting $1,000. June, she's collecting $800. Ward dies. Well, the good news for June is she'll now be able to receive an additional $200 a month, bringing her from the $800 she'd been receiving on her own up to that $1,000 level that he had been collecting. That's the good news. The bad news is, as I mentioned, It's one or the other, not both at once. So just, while he was alive, they were actually getting $1,800 a month in Social Security benefits, right? His 1,000, her 800. He passes away, while her individual payment goes up. In essence, her own benefit goes away. Just something you need to plan for, because it's one or the other, not both at once. But the other point I want to make is this. Ward, full retirement age amount 1,000. June's collecting 800. But what if Ward had waited till age 70 before starting to collect? So at the time he passed away, he wasn't getting 1,000 a month. No, he was getting $1,320 a month. Well, the better news for June is her individual payment now goes from the 800 past 1,000 all the way up to that $1,320 that he had been collecting at the time he passed away. So just keep this in mind in deciding when to start to draw your own retirement benefit. Remember that by opting to wait, not only is your own payment going to be higher once you start to collect, but it also means that any survivor payment that could be made upon your passing is going to be higher as well. And by starting sooner, not only is your own benefit lower than it would be if you waited, but it also means that any survivor payment will be lower as well. Another good reason why I say good things come to those who wait. But again, not for me to say. A couple of quick reminders: widows and widowers can start to collect a little bit sooner. Actually start to collect as early as 60, but the same concept holds. You start to draw that money before you reach your full retirement age, you get less. Works out, you start right at age 60 at your earliest point, you get 71.5% of what you'd receive if you waited all the way till full retirement age. The other thing, key message is this: under the rules of the program, June Cleaver, as a widow who has worked, for example, and paid into the system. As I mentioned, you collect on one account or the other, you don't collect on both at once, but it is possible, for example, for June, at age 62, to collect a reduced retirement benefit. Collect, and then at her full retirement age, switch over, opt to collect at that point a full unreduced widow's benefit. And the fact she's been taking reduced retirement benefits doesn't prevent her from getting a full unreduced widow's benefit. And the reverse is true too. She could start taking a reduced widow's benefit at 60, and then, if it made sense financially, at a later date, switch over to her own benefit. But again, you collect on one or the other. You don't collect on both at once, but you can sequence it. But keep this in mind. Whether you're talking about retirement benefits, spousal benefits, divorce spousal benefits, or survivor benefits, if you're under your full retirement age and working, you're going to be subject to that annual earnings test I had mentioned a few slides ago. So June Cleaver, widow at age 60, says, I want to start collecting on Ward's account. But she's working, making $1 million a year. She's not going to be able to collect, not because she isn't old enough, but because her work and earnings are well above the allowed threshold. So any type of benefit under full retirement age, you're subject to that earnings limitation. All right.
Question, please.
Yes.
What if you have an ex-husband after 18 years of marriage? He has since remarried, you have not, and he dies. Would myself be entitled to any of his Social Security, even though he has a current wife or it would be a current widow? How would that work?
So, the good news is, as a divorced widow, your benefit is going to be based on 100% of his benefit, all right? And under the law, divorced spousal, divorced widows, treated absolutely, totally, completely, independently of anyone else who might be collecting the record. So your ability to collect wouldn't impact the new Mrs., what her name is, nor would her collecting impact you whatsoever. But as, while he's alive, 50%, he passes away, eligible for 100%, and both of you could collect equally without impacting the other.
Oh,
All right?
that's interesting, thank you.
Yes?
On that same subject, when the deceased person does leave and he has the higher benefit or she has the higher benefit and the spouse gets that higher benefit, do the checks now go to the spouse name or do they still go, they are going?
Yep, switch it over and they go out in the name of the surviving spouse.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So if the divorced spouse was collecting a reduced benefit, and then became a widowed spouse, she could get the full, okay.
Yep. Yeah, treated no differently than a regular spouse. Again, married for at least 10 years.
Right, but even though they were taking it earlier, they would now get bumped
Yep.
up to the full, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So here's what I want to do. I want to bring you up to date on some changes that occurred about a year and a half ago in some of the Social Security claiming strategies that have been all the rage for a decade or so. Make sure you understand what's still possible these days. Significant changes were made to two claiming strategies, one called file and suspend, you've heard that term bandied about. The other is called claim some now, claim more later. File and suspend, basically, in the words of Ken Harrelson, broadcaster for the Chicago White Sox, it's long gone and hard to find. What the law said is, if you had been utilizing file, and I'll tell you what file and suspend was in a second. If you had been utilizing file and suspend at any point prior to April 29th of last year, you're golden. But anybody after April 29th of 2016 no longer has file and suspend as an option. What was file and suspend? Well, we'll illustrate with the Cleavers again. It was a situation where, say, Ward had worked, June had never worked. And Ward, having attended a Czarnowski consulting seminar, decides he wants to wait until age 70 before collecting his own benefit. But he's wondering, is there something I can do to get June some money while I'm still waiting to collect my own? And under the old law, file and suspend said if Ward had waited until his full retirement age, at that point he could go to Social Security, he could apply for his own retirement benefit, he could ask to have his payments suspended, meaning he wouldn't collect anything, but because he wasn't collecting anything, he'd be accruing delayed retirement credits, growing his benefit 2/3% per month, 8% per year, which is what he wanted to do. But under the old law, by his merely having applied in the first place, Social Security would be able to pay a spousal benefit to June. She could collect some money even though he wasn't actually collecting. What the new law basically says is, if Ward asks to have his payments suspended, Social Security is also now required to also suspend the benefits to June and or anyone else who might be collecting on his record. So that option of deferring and letting the spouse still collect while the primary breadwinner is deferring, that's what's gone. No longer an option. As I said, you filed and suspended by April 29th, you were grandfathered in, but since last April 29th of 2016, you hadn't filed and suspended by then, no longer an option. No longer an option. And that's why I said, in terms of spousal benefits will only be paid if the breadwinner is actually collecting him or herself. But the other strategy, something called claim some now, claim more later, actually has a longer shelf life and may still be an option for some folks. I want to bring you up to date on what that's all about. Claim some now, claim more later will again illustrate it with the Cleavers, but this was a situation where, say, both Ward and June had worked, both had paid into the system. Ward, full retirement age amount $1,000, June, full retirement age amount $800 a month. Ward, he wants to wait. All right, he wants to wait till age 70, but June has decided to start collecting. She's receiving her own benefit, so she's over the age of 62. Doesn't matter what age she's at, she's over 62, she's collecting. Under this old claim some now, claim more later strategy, Ward's sitting there going, geez, I want to wait on my own, but is there something I can do to get me some money while I wait? And under this old claim some now, claim more later strategy, if Ward waited until his full retirement age, June's collecting, he waited till full retirement age. At that point, he had the option of taking just a spousal benefit, which would enable him to receive 50% of June's full retirement age amount without having to take his own. He could, in essence, defer collecting his own, but be paid a spousal benefit at the same time he was allowing his own to grow. Key thing was, you had to be at full retirement age to be able to take that spousal benefit alone, because if you were under your full retirement age, you didn't have that option. You didn't have the ability to pick and choose. So under full retirement age, you went to Social Security and said, I just want to take half of my spouse's. They go, no. You have to take your own first, and if your own was greater than 50% of your spouse's, that's what you collected. But at full retirement age, your spouse was collecting, you could opt to take just the spousal payment without receiving your own. Meaning, let yours grow, 8% per year at age 70, swoop in, collect a payment on your own, 32% higher than it would have been had you started at full retirement age, but you would have been receiving this spousal payment in the meantime, making it a little bit easier to defer. So what's the new law say? Well, under the new law, it grandfathers in even more people. Now what the new law says is, if you were born January 1st, 1954 or earlier, You were born January 1st, 1954 or earlier. Polite translation, as long as you were 62 years of age or older at the end of 2015. Then, at your full retirement age, if your spouse is collecting, you will still have the option of taking just the spousal payment, deferring collection of your own and letting it grow. You had to be born prior to January 1st, 1954. You still have to be at full retirement age. But at full retirement age, if your spouse is collecting, you can still opt to take 50% and defer collecting your own. If you weren't born prior to January 1st, 1954, in the vernacular, you are SOL. No matter what age you're at, when you go to Social Security, you don't have the option of picking and choosing. At whatever age you're at, you're deemed to be applying for both your own retirement benefit and a spousal payment at the same time. You'll collect on one or the other, whichever one is higher. So there is this phase-out period, so if that possibly applies to you, we'll talk to these folks about maybe taking advantage of that. Important point though, nothing in what I talked about just now has any impact at all on what I mentioned earlier in terms of a widow or widower's ability to take, say, a reduced survivor benefit and switch over to a full unreduced retirement benefit or vice versa as pertains to spousal benefits. So big changes about a year and a half ago, but this claim some now, claim more later strategy has a longer shelf life. Maybe it's something you want to take advantage of. Just a quick reminder about taxation of benefits. There are a lot of questions about this as well. Prior to 1983, Social Security benefits were absolutely totally tax-free. That year, Congress changed the IRS code and said if you were a higher income Social Security beneficiary, you'd be required to pay federal income tax on a portion of the benefit payments that you had received in the prior year. How did they define higher income? If you were a single tax filer, you had about $25,000 in all sources of income. Couple filing jointly about $32,000, then you'd be required to pay federal income tax on up to 50% of the Social Security benefits that you would receive in the prior year. They get treated as ordinary income, taxed at whatever marginal tax rate you fell under. That first year, only about 10% of all Social Security beneficiaries had to pay federal income tax on a portion of their benefit payments. But what Congress didn't do was index the threshold. And so now, here we are 33 years later, still at the point where single tax filer, you have about $25,000 in income, couple filing jointly about 32. You're now going to be in a position you may have to pay federal income tax on up to 85% of the benefits that you had received in the prior year. It gets treated as ordinary income, taxed at whatever marginal tax rate you fall under. Because the thresholds have been indexed these days, about half of all Social Security beneficiaries at the end of the year do find they have to pay federal income tax on a portion of the benefits that they had received in the prior year. My wish for everybody in this room is that you pay federal income tax on your Social Security benefits. Why? Because that means you've got income about $25,000 as a single person in retirement, about 32 as a couple in retirement. You should aspire to pay federal income. That's not good. End of the year, Social Security sends you a 1099 form. Use that in filing your tax return. Question often comes up, does Social Security automatically withhold a portion of your benefits and send it off the IRS in advance? The answer is no. They don't do it automatically, but if you'd like to have it done, fill out a W-4 form, and at your request, Social Security will withhold a portion, send it off to the IRS in advance. For taxation of benefits. Now again, we're talking federal taxation of benefits, Social Security benefits, tax-free here in Massachusetts. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, if you make like, $2 above the $25,000 limit, is it just taxed on the $2 or is it the total?
What it means, you make anything above that threshold, then up to 50% of your benefits now gets thrown back into the hopper.
So it's the whole amount?
Up to 50%.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. Doesn't matter how much you're over.
Over,
Yep,
so,
yep.
okay.
Yep. All
What if you're disabled due to an injury and you receive disability and you're working part-time?
right. Social Security disability?
Yes.
Or, okay.
What happens, at what point does it revert to Social Security? Would it be at your full retirement age? Or will it be at any time before that, according to whatever the SSDI is, however it's written?
So, and I'll paraphrase the question. You're collecting Social Security disability. what happens when you reach retirement age? The good news is disability benefits stop the month you reach your full retirement age. At that point, you're automatically but seamlessly converted from the disability program to the retirement program. You continue to draw exactly the same amount. You pay it exactly the same date. There's no change from your perspective, but from the Social Security perspective, from an accounting standpoint, actually, disability benefits and retirement benefits start, but it's at the month you reach your full retirement age.
Thank you.
All right. All right, like Lady Godiva, I must come to my close. Oh, come on, that's a funny line. Work with me on this. Let's wrap up and I'll take some more questions. I always like to end where I started. Just a quick reminder, kept repeating throughout the entire presentation. Vitally important to recognize Social Security is designed to provide you that base, that foundation of income that you can count on being there, but it was never intended to be your only source of income in retirement. The sooner you recognize that, these two fine folks to find ways you can supplement your Social Security, the more likely you are to have that comfortable retirement. So I hope the information's been helpful. A bunch of stuff in your folders, some handouts, get copies of the slides, but now let's take some more questions if you have. Yes, sir, back there.
Going back to the issue of taking benefits and then changing later on, if you have one spouse who's retiring significantly earlier than the other spouse who takes their benefits, and then the other spouse waits until 70 years of age, do you have to meet that criteria of being born before January 1st, 54 to take your chunk first and then take the 50% later?
No, it's the other way around. The way it works is, if you're born prior to January 1st, 54, you have the option, if you're at full retirement age,
Yep.
and your spouse is collecting, you can take just the spousal benefit, don't have to take your own, because you're not taking your own, you're now growing your own benefit 2/3% per month, 8% per year, for as long as you don't collect your own, right up until age 70.
Okay, but then at that time,
Then you switch over, start to collect your own.
and can your spouse move up to?
Sure, absolutely.
Even if you weren't born before January?
Absolutely, because you've started to collect, all right? Spouse is collecting whatever she was entitled to, then if
Right.
that is less than half of, say, your full retirement age amount, once you start to collect your own, she could be receiving some additional money.
Even though she wasn't born before January 1st?
Yes, because she's taking her own first, that's the thing. The key thing is, if you're born before January 1st, 54, you have the option of taking just the spousal benefit without having to take your own first.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna, when I retire, I'm gonna be receiving a state pension from the state of Rhode Island. Now, I was reading the brochure that I can be penalized on my social security for getting a state pension.
Perhaps. So here's the deal. There are two provisions of the Social Security program that impact folks who get a public pension. But the key thing is whether or not that public pension is based on work where you were contributing to the Social Security program.
I have one.
So, if you're a public employee and you've been paying into the Social Security program, as state employees do in Rhode Island, you have nothing to worry about. Those two provisions, the windfall provision and the government pension offset, those apply to folks who get that public pension, which, like here in Massachusetts, is based on work where you were not paying into the Social Security program. If you're a town employee here in Massachusetts, if you're a school teacher in Massachusetts, if you're a state employee in Massachusetts, you don't pay into the Social Security program. You're paying into the teacher's retirement system or whatever. But if you're a public employee where you've been paying into the Social Security program, you're treated no differently than anyone else. You get a full regular Social Security benefit. That's the key thing. You've been paying into the system.
That was my.
Now, if you're one of those public employees here in Massachusetts where you haven't been paying into Social Security, as I mentioned, there's two different issues you need to be aware of. One, the windfall provision. That applies to you if, in addition to your public sector time, you have worked and paid into the Social Security program, either before, after, or perhaps during your public service. As long as you have 10 years of time under the Social Security program, important to understand that you will always get something, each and every month from Social Security, even if you get that public pension. That's the good news. The bad news is, with the windfall provision, the amount that you get each month from Social Security, in all likelihood, won't be as high as it would have been if you didn't get your state pension, because Social Security is required to use a different and admittedly less generous formula to calculate the amount of your retirement benefit. If you get 10 years of time under the system, you're always gonna get something, even if you get that state or local pension. That's one, that's windfall. Government pension offset, it's a different story. Government pension offset applies to you, you get that public pension from a place like Massachusetts. But now, instead of looking to collect a Social Security benefit based on your own work activity, you're looking to collect a spousal benefit, a divorce spousal benefit, or perhaps a survivor benefit. Under government pension offset, before Social Security will pay you anything based on your spouse's work record, they look at the amount of your public pension. Figure out what 2/3 of your monthly pension amount is. So you get a $3,000 pension, 2/3 of that is $2,000. Social Security, before they will pay you anything as a spouse, divorced spouse, or widow or widower, they offset that Social Security payment that you could collect by 2/3 of your pension. So if 2/3 of your pension is more than what you could collect based on your spouse's work record, you don't get anything more from Social Security. Does that mean you have no income? No, you've got your full public pension. Government pension offset exists, because I mentioned, for June Cleaver, or anybody who's worked and paid into the system, you collect on one account or the other at a time, you don't get your full Social Security benefit and a full spousal benefit at the same time. Government pension offset, designed to bring public employees under that same concept, that if you've worked, paid into a system, generated your own pension that exceeds what you could collect as a spouse, that's all you could collect. So with windfall provision, you're always gonna get something. With government pension offset, if 2/3 of your pension is higher than what you could collect on your spouse's work record, you're not gonna get anything more. I get fact sheets on both the WEF and GPO, if that's gonna impact you, come on up, see me again. Yeah.
In Massachusetts, under the windfall provision, how is the reduced amount calculated that you will get from Social Security?
So it's basically, the first couple of steps of the formula are identical. It's index all of your earnings, average them over your highest 35 years, and then the regular calculation, it's a segmented calculation. 2017, the maximum reduction in somebody's Social Security payment, because they get that public pension here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, is to reduce it by $428 a month. That's the biggest hit you can take. Could be less than that, but 428. And the fact sheet I have explains it in a little more detail.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
How about if you take your Social Security and you work in a state in Massachusetts, but you keep working?
Great news. So what triggers either the windfall provision or the government pension offset is receipt of the pension. So unless and until you actually start to collect your pension, you're not impacted by either. So you're still working as a principal at an elementary school, for example. You hit your full retirement age, all right? You haven't retired, so you haven't started to collect your state teacher's pension. And because you're at full retirement age, work and earnings no longer impact your ability to collect, right? So at that point, you could go to Social Security, assuming you've had at least 10 years of time, you could apply for and receive a full normal Social Security benefit, and you'll receive that amount until you retire and start to collect your teacher's pension, or principal's pension, or whatever. At that point, your benefit has to be adjusted downward. But it's the receipt of the pension that triggers the different calculation. So unless and until you actually retire and start to collect the pension, you're treated no differently than anyone else. Now that's a key point though, it's gotta be full retirement age. Earnings no longer impact your ability to collect. So, you decide you're never gonna take your state pension, well, you're not gonna be impacted by it either. It may not be the right decision to make, but it's receipt of the pension that triggers that. Great, who's closing? Oh, yeah, oh,
I just need clarification on
Sure.
this. Under the heading, you can work and still receive benefits.
yep,
It says here, if you are, the year full retirement age is reached.
so let's go back, we'll put that slide back on.
Okay.
This is another one where if I had had 8 hours, we'd have gone through this more.
Next time.
Yeah, next time. Yeah. All right,
Okay.
so generally, under full retirement age, all right, that's 16,920. But there's a special, more generous test that applies the year you reach your full retirement age. So,
Yeah.
to You turn 66 in September of this year, for example. Under the rules, you can collect Social Security benefits from September on, regardless of your work activity, because you're at your full retirement age. What this pertains to is months from January until the month before you reach your full retirement age. So in our example, January through August is more generous. It says basically this year, from January to August, you could earn as much as $44,880 during that period of time and collect at the same time. Now, recognizing that by doing that, you'd be collecting prior to your full retirement age, so you'd be taking a reduced payment amount. But it's months from January to the month before you reach your full retirement age, because from the month you hit full retirement age on, you can collect even if you're making $1 million a month.
Yeah, see, the question I had was on, that particular middle,
Yep.
thing, up until that full retirement age. The month of full retirement age and above, there's no limit onto how much you can make. For example, SSDI limits you.
Oh,
You
sure.
can only make X amount per month
Yep.
if you're gonna collect.
Yep.
You can't make any more than that. So I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, fine, now for Social Security, you can make so much up to, you know, up until your full retirement age, you can make up to that 44,000, if I'm reading it correctly. And then after that, then there's no limit, correct? Thank you very much.
But wait, there's a difference between if you are collecting Social Security disability benefits or Social Security retirement benefits. If you're collecting Social Security disability benefits,
Right.
the rules you mentioned
Yeah.
apply right up until the month you reach your full retirement age. Then you transition to the retirement benefits
Yeah.
and no limit. But if you're collecting disability benefits, this doesn't apply.
Right.
This is
No, I
only in the
understand that.
retirement program,
Yeah, yeah.
only for the retirement program. Yeah,
So at full retirement age, if your full retirement age is 66 and 2 months.
Yep.
You can collect your full retirement benefit and continue to earn anything you want.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely, from that month on. Now, that's why it's important to know what your full retirement age is based on your year of birth, because it moves a little bit. But yeah, from that point on, work and earnings no longer matter.
You
Yeah.
stop indexing at age 60, is that correct?
Yeah. Anything earned 60 and on is actually at face value in the average.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you say there were spousal benefits, for pensions, state pensions?
No, what I said was, you're trying to collect Social Security spousal benefits. June Cleaver, Massachusetts school teacher, for example, who wants to collect as a spouse based on Ward's work and earnings. If she gets that state pension, all right, government pension offset kicks in, and before Social Security will pay her the Social Security spousal benefit, they're gonna reduce it by 2/3 of the amount of her pension. So 2/3 of her state pension is more than the Social Security spousal payment that she might be eligible for. She's not gonna get anything more.
What if Ward was the one getting the pension? Is she eligible for social security benefits?
Good question. Question is, if, then the answer to the question is, the only time government pension offset or windfall provision apply is if the pension is based on your own work activity. So, Ward's state employee gets a state pension, but he's also worked and paid into Social Security a little bit. June doesn't get a state pension at all. She's eligible for regular spousal benefits based on Ward's work and earnings, because she's not receiving the state pension. Pension has to be based on your own work activity. Yes?
So it looked like divorce was gonna be in my near future.
Sure. And Sylvia, they take care of that too, in fact. They can do weddings and divorces, right?
But actually, the question, I just wanna verify that, if my spouse takes her full retirement now, I can take 50% of that, is that correct?
How old are you? Are you at your full retirement
I am
age?
not at my full retirement.
Right, so,
But she is at her full retirement.
she's at full retirement age. So you, earliest age you can collect anything is age 62. So you walk
I beat
in-
that one.
Huh?
I beat that one.
Right, so you walk into Social Security today, and you go, I just wanna take 50% of my spouse's, or ex-spouse's.
Right.
Social Security says, sorry, under the rules, you have to take your own retirement benefit first, all right? You don't have the option of picking and choosing. If your own full retirement age amount is more than 50% of your spouse's full retirement age amount, you just collect on your own. If your own is less than 50% of hers, you collect whatever you're entitled to on your own, and then may get some additional money on top of that. But you don't have the option of picking and choosing. You have to take your own first.
Well, so divorce isn't my future.
I don't know whether that's good news or bad news. Somebody else had a question? Yes.
You take Medicare questions as well, or is that another night different?
I don't know, if it's an easy one.
Does Medicare payments get deducted automatically from Social Security?
Great, so let me give you a quick 30-second rundown of Medicare. Medicare eligibility is age 65. Medicare started back in 1965, and at that point, Congress set Medicare eligibility at age 65, which at the time coincided with Social Security full retirement age of 65. Now they've been decoupled. We've already talked about full retirement age for Social Security is 66 and climbing. Medicare eligibility hasn't changed. It's still age 65. So you can opt to take Medicare at age 65 without collecting Social Security. You can opt to defer your Social Security. With Medicare, a couple of different parts. Part A, hospital insurance, that pays if you're an inpatient in the hospital. With Part A, there's no monthly premium that you have to pay. While you've been working, you've been paying 1.45% Medicare tax. That funds the hospital insurance program. Bigger issue surrounds Part B of Medicare or medical insurance, helps cover non-inpatient stuff. You want Part B of Medicare, there's a monthly premium you have to pay. Base premium this year, $134. Long-winded preface to your question. If you are collecting Social Security benefits and on Part B of Medicare, your monthly Part B premium is automatically deducted from your monthly Social Security payment. You don't have an option, don't have a choice. But if you've enrolled in Part B of Medicare and are opting to defer collecting Social Security benefits, you will be billed on a quarterly basis for your premium. So if you're collecting benefits, no choice, automatically deducted. Not yet collecting, you get billed on a quarterly basis for your premium.
One question on
Yeah,
that.
yes.
So Part A hospitalization, that's 100%?
No.
It's 80%?
So, with the Part A program, you are admitted to the hospital, you have a deductible that you have to pay, and it's around somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,300. After that, after you've met the deductible, yes, Medicare pays 100% of your inpatient hospital costs.
Is that per year?
They call it per benefit period. It's not an annual deductible. So you go in the hospital for a particular impairment or whatever, come home, you're out for 6 months, back into the hospital for something different or even for the same thing, you have a new deductible, you have to pay the deductible for each one of those hospitalizations.
Actually, to interrupt you, to that point, first of all, thank you, Craig.